So, good afternoon and welcome to the last part of Anthoceros life cycle. If you remember, in the last lecture, we discussed about how the process of fertilization takes place. The fertilization process involves formation and fusion of gametes, and it's a oogamous type of sexual reproduction. The fertilization gives out a zygote, and then this zygote will later on develop into the sporophyte. I made a statement last time, the zygote is the first cell of the diploid or sporophytic generation. So what is the sporophyte? Sporophyte is also referred to as sporogonium. And these sporophytes usually grow in clusters on the dorsal side of the gametophyte, as you can make out in this particular diagram, as well as in the photograph. These are the sporophytes which are in cluster on the dorsal surface. In this photograph also you can clearly make out. I have given another name to the sporophyte, and that is sporogonium. So sporophyte and sporogonium are synonyms. Okay, so we are talking about sporophyte of Anthoceros. At the base of each sporogonium, that is sporophyte, is presence of a collar-like structure, and which is a part of gametophyte and not the sporophyte. Please try and understand this particular portion. This portion I'm talking about, it is a collar-like structure and it is referred to as involucre. Remember, it is not a part of gametophyte, and it is a part of gametophyte and not that of sporophyte. And that's the reason why the ploidy level of this involucre is haploid, because gametophyte is haploid. So it's a gametophytic tissue. Remember, it is not a part of sporophyte, but yes, the base of the sporophyte is covered by means of this collar-like structure from the gametophytic tissue, and that is referred to as involucre. Now, due to the appearance of sporophyte, which is like bristles or horns, you can see it is coming out like horns, number of structures coming out from the gametophyte. And that's the reason why Anthoceros is often referred to as a hornwort. Okay, we have already mentioned in the classification of bryophytes that we have got three different groups. Number one, we have Hepaceae, which is referred to as now Hepaticopsida, commonly known as liverworts, example, Riccia. Second group is called as Anthoceratopsida, earlier known as Anthocerote, and example is Anthoceros, which are commonly known as hornworts. And the third group now referred to as Bryopsida, earlier called as Mossae, example is Finaria, common name mosses. Okay, so these are the hornworts, and the hornwort name is basically due to the horn-like structures, that is nothing but the sporophytes. Now there are two aspects we have to learn in the sporophyte. Number one is the external character, and the second one is the internal structure by taking vertical section. As far as external characters are concerned, it is about 2 to 3 centimeter long, horn-like structures, cylindrical in nature, and they are greenish in color. And as we have already mentioned, they are coming out from the dorsal side of the gametophyte. They are found in the cluster. When they are young, they are comparatively more greenish. And remember, they act as a partial parasite. Why partial parasite? Because they are green in color, they can do photosynthesis, but at the same time, they have a foot-like structure due to which they have to absorb the water and mineral from the gametophytic tissue. If you compare this with that of Riccia life cycle, which you have studied, the sporophyte was represented by only capsule. There was no foot and there was no seta. And as a result, there was a complete dependency of the sporophyte on the gametophyte. So therefore, it was called as the complete parasitic. Okay, but here it is not a complete parasite. It is semi-parasite or partial parasite. Okay. As far as the sporophyte is concerned, the sporophyte is basically divided into three regions. There is a foot, there is an intercalary region, and then there is a capsule. Seta is absent over here, but there is an intercalary region. The capsule forms the major part of the sporogonium, which is a long, slender, cylindrical, and upright structure. The capsule is capable of unlimited growth because of the presence of meristematic region below it. Now, for that, we have to understand the internal structure as well. But one thing you can observe over here, all these sporophytes or sporogonia, they are having different lengths. And for the simple reason, depending upon when they have formed, their growth will be variable. And one more thing, just now we mentioned, there is a presence of meristematic tissue at the base, and that's the reason why the growth is continuously taking place. Higher the growth is better, because at the time of release of spores, if the sporophyte is at higher heights, it will be able to disperse the spores to the longer distances. And that's the reason why the height is required. Now let us talk about the internal structure of the sporophyte. And for the internal structure, I've got a diagram, and on the other side, you can also see there is a slide. In fact, it's a photograph of an internal structure which is seen under microscope, and you can compare it with the diagrammatic presentation of the same on the other side. So this is the internal structure we are talking about, and for internal structure we need to take the vertical section VS of the sporophyte. The internal structure of the sporophyte is highly elaborated and complex, as you can make out from the diagram. It shows three different regions, as we have mentioned. There is a foot, there is a meristematic region, and there is a capsule. Involucre is not a part of sporophyte. I have already mentioned it, and that's the reason why it is haploid, due to be a part of gametophytic tissue. The intercalary region is also referred to as a meristematic zone, and the capsule is nothing but the spore producing body. So we have got foot, there is an intercalary or meristematic region, and the third one is that of capsule. You can identify them from the diagram itself. There is a foot over here. Then there is a meristematic region or intercalary region. Involucre, as I've already mentioned, is a collar-like structure, but it is from the gametophyte, not the part of sporophyte. Sporophyte is here, okay? And then you can also see just after the meristematic region, the long cylindrical structure, and that is referred to as the capsule, okay? As far as foot is concerned, you can make out this is a thallus, which is nothing but gametophyte, and the foot is directly in contact with the thallus. So the foot is the basal expanded part of the sporogonium, that is sporophyte, and it is deeply anchored is the gametophytic tissue and is formed of parenchymatous cells. The foot acts as an anchoring as well as absorbing part organ of the sporophyte. The sporophyte is depending upon gametophyte only for the nutrients, the water and minerals, but not for the food material. As it is green in color, it can prepare its own food material. So with the help of foot, not only it will anchor to the gametophyte, it will also take those minerals along with the water. Then comes the second region, which is a unique characteristic of Anthoceros sporophyte, and that is presence of intercalary or meristematic zone. This is a region between the foot and the capsule. The presence of meristematic region, as I told, is a unique feature of Anthoceros. It is formed of few layers of meristematic cells which are arranged in superposed manner, that is one above the other. The derivative of this zone latter differentiate into different parts of the capsule. Because of the presence of meristematic zone, the capsule of Anthoceros is long-lived, and that's the reason why continuous addition of the cells taking place, and that's why it will keep on elongating. The zone also ensures the continuous formation of spore. Then comes the third important zone, and that is, or rather region, that is called as capsule. The capsule is a long cylindrical and it forms the major part of the sporophyte, because externally you are able to see only the capsule. You're not able to see foot as well as meristematic zone. There is a involucre, but involucre is only covering the capsule, which is not a part of the capsule. The capsule is then differentiated into capsule wall, that is nothing but the outer wall. I'm just marking it over here. So there is a capsule wall. Then there is a sporogenous tissue, which is actually undergoing division in order to produce the spores. And then, very important, you can see in the center, there is a supporting columella. So there is a capsule wall, which is the outer protective wall. In the center, there is a columella, which is acting as a support. And now you can see there is a zone which is sandwiched in between the capsule wall and columella, and it is lined with a number of cells right from the base to the top. You can see different stages of spore formation. I'm sure you are aware of spore formation is usually taking place by meiosis. It is sporogenesis which is taking place, and in this sporogenesis, the spore mother cells undergoes meiosis to produce haploid spores. So right from the base to the top, you'll be able to see the different stages. Look at the top. You can see spore tetrad. Look at the base. These are unicellular cells, which are close to meristematic region. And now these are just newly formed cells. These are the sporogenous cells. And these sporogenous cells will undergo meiosis in order to produce the spores. So from the base to the top, that is how you can make out the different stages in the spore formation. Okay, we are going to talk more about it. So how many zones or how many regions are there in the capsule? 3. Number 1 is capsule wall. Number 2 is sporogenous tissue. And number 3 is columella. Sporogenous tissue is sandwiched between the capsule wall and that of columella. Okay, so what is a capsule wall? As the name suggests, it's a wall. You can also see corresponding slide over here, This is a capsule wall. In the center, this is a columella. This is the meristematic region below, and now in between the wall and the columella, these are the sporogenous tissue, which are undergoing meiosis, and that is how the formation of spores would be taking place. Yeah, let us talk about capsule wall first. Capsule wall is the outermost region of the capsule, which is multi-layered, made up of many layers. Almost 4 to 6 layers are present. The outermost layer of the wall is the epidermis. Usually, we have epidermis as the outermost layer. Epi is above, and dermis is the skin. So it consists of narrow, vertical, elongated cells. They are protective in nature. The epidermis is usually interrupted by many places by stomata, obviously for exchange of gases. These stomata consist of pores surrounded by the two guard cells, and usually these guard cells are open only. This we have already discussed in the thallus as well, where the guard cells remain open only. There is no opening and closing of stomata as such. The inner layer of the cell wall is chlorenchymatous, chlorenchyma, parenchyma with chloroplast. So what is the function? Obviously photosynthesis. The wall is thus photosynthetic in function, and which enables the sporophyte to become at least partially, if not fully, self-sufficient as far as food material is concerned. And the sporophyte that therefore is referred to as semi-parasite or partial parasite. Okay. Next, second part, the most important part, because it is sporogenous tissue. Without sporogenous tissue, spores cannot be produced, and there is no meaning of sporophyte without sporogenous tissue. Sporogenous tissue is present between the capsule wall and the central sterile region. The central region is called as columella, and it is sterile, opposite of fertile. What is meant by fertile? The one which usually produces something. So that is called fertile. So sporogenous tissue are fertile, columella is sterile. So the central sterile region is called columella, and there is a capsule wall, and in between the sporogenous tissue are sandwiched. It also extends above the columella like a dome shaped structure, a feature which is a characteristic of Anthoceros, and in sharp contrast to those other liverworts. In liverworts, you are aware, there is only capsule. There is no foot, there is no seta. And if you remember Riccia sporophyte, it was only a oval or spherical structure with directly sporogenous tissue, which divides by meiosis, and you get spore tetrad. That's all. There is nothing else. But here you get this dome-shaped structure due to presence of the columella, the sterile region in the center. So it's a very characteristic feature of Anthoceros. The tissue is one or few layers in the thickness. Throughout the length of the capsule shows archisporium. Archisporium is nothing but the cells which are later on going to develop into the mother cells for spore production. Little higher towards the apex, there is a differentiation of spore mother cells. Then the spore tetrad, and ultimately near the apex of the capsule, spores and pseudoelaters are present. So, in fact, these are the different stages for you can a group of 4. This is a tetrad. Here you can also see some of the loose spores and some of the pseudoelaters. Now, what are pseudoelaters? I can elaborate on that. Okay, now correspondingly, what you can see here is a transfer section, which is taken at different levels. You can read over here 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the sections which are taken, transfer section at these levels. So in each of the level, you'll be able to see the stages of development. In the first diagram, that is a B in this series, You can see the columella, you can see the parenchymatous tissue, and you can see the wall. That's all. But now in the next one, you'll be able to see columella separately along with the presence of archisporium. And then here you get the spore mother cells. And in the last one, you can see these are the spore tetrads. And along with the spore tetrad, these are the pseudo-elaters. Pseudo stands for false. These pseudo-elaters are branched or unbranched, but they are multicellular. They may show wall thickenings, but they are generally smooth-walled and they are nutritive in function. They are nutritive in function. So what does it mean? They provide nutrition, nourishment to these developing spores. Okay, so that is a function of the pseudo-elaters. Now we are coming to the third part. What is the third part? Columella. Columella is a solid, non-fertile, or you can say sterile, central core of the capsule. It extends from the base to the apex. The cells are narrow, elongated with uniformly thickened walls. The cells are present in total 16 rows. I repeat, 16 rows. The main function of this columella is to support the long and delicate capsule. A few bryologists regard them as primitive vascular cylinders. Remember, Bryophyta doesn't have vascular tissues, but in the evolution, according to some bryologists, those who are scientists in especially bryophytes, they are doing research. They are called as bryologists. So according to these bryologists, these are the primary vascular cylinders. Okay, because not only it is providing the support, but at the same time from the base to the top, it is but obviously the transport of the food material and water would be taking place. Each and every cell is chlorochromatous. So, but obviously they are preparing the food material and water will be taken up by the food and slowly it will travel up to the top. So probably this is the primary vascular cylinder. Otherwise also it is providing the support which is required, very much required for this delicate sporophyte. So columella is solid, non-fertile central core of the capsule and basically providing the protection and the support to the capsule. Now, we have discussed about the capsule wall, sporogenous tissue and columella. That completes the entire structure of the sporophyte. Now, what is the function of the sporophyte? Is to produce spores, and the spore formation is referred to as sporogenesis. What is sporogenesis? Sporogenesis in simple words is referred to as spore formation. So suppose this is a spore mother cell which is diploid in nature. This spore mother cell undergoes meiosis, and the result of this meiosis is formation of a tetrad, and this tetrad consists of 4 spores. Each spore is haploid, and the process of formation of this spore is referred to as sporogenesis. We have already mentioned in general characteristics of bryophytes that all produced are similar, and that is the reason why this particular sporogenesis cannot be called as a micro or mega sporogenesis, because all the spores are similar. So condition is called as homosporous condition. Okay, so sporogenesis takes place to the spore mother cells which are diploid in nature, and this is a spore tetrad. So in the spore tetrad, there are 4 pollen grains. I'm sorry, this is a spore, not pollen grain. But in pollen also you'll get the similar pollen formation in the form of a tetrad. So this is a spore tetrad. So you have got 1, 2, 3 and fourth on the other side. This is tetrahedral spore tetrad. Okay, so once the spores are formed, that is called as sporogenesis. The spore mother cell undergoes reduction division to form 4 haploid cells. Along with this, the chloroplast of the cells also divides to form 4 chloroplasts, so that each of the spore will get 1 chloroplast right from the beginning. So each haploid cell receives 1 chloroplast. The mature spore is tetrahedral. The spore is yellow in color. Some species may have black color also, but usually it is yellowish, yellow color. Spore is formed of 2 layers. The outer layer is called as exospore, which is comparatively thick and opaque, whereas it might show presence of small spine-like structure or tubercles, whereas the inner layer is called as endospore. And just you can have similarities design and intine. The spore wall encloses uninucleate cytoplasm with reserve food material. So this reserve food material is especially required so that till the pollen germination takes place or spore germination takes place, it would survive. Okay, now the spores are ready. So when spores are ready, the capsule must break open. And the breaking of this capsule is referred to as dehiscence. Dehiscence of capsule takes place. So on maturation, the vertical lines of the dehiscence develop in the jacket of the capsule from the tip downwards. So right from the tip downwards, these lines are developed, and these lines are present in the depression, and each consists of 2 rows of thick-walled epidermal cells surrounded by thin cells. The slits occur along the line. The capsule wall between the slits is called as valve. The reflexing of these valve exposes the underlying mass of spores and the elaters. And as a result, all spores would be released. You can compare this just like banana. So in banana, we take out the pill. पहले थोड़ा सा निकालते, फिर साइड से निकालते, फिर साइड से निकालते. So similar to that, the valves are present, but all these valves will open at the same time. And as a result of which, the complete capsule will break open and all the spores are released. And that is referred to as dehiscence of capsule. Okay. Now, what will happen to these spores? These spores, along with the wind, they'll go to different places, and wherever these spores will fall and they get favorable conditions, these spores will germinate. Remember, the spores are the first cells of the gametophytic generation. Earlier I said zygote is the first cell of the sporophytic generation because it was diploid. Okay. Now I'm saying spore is the first cell of the gametophytic generation. It is haploid. The spore absorbs water. That's why I said favorable conditions are required. So it will absorb the water which is present in the surrounding. It will swell. And because of this, the exospore, that is outer wall, will rupture. And the endospore, that is inner wall, protrudes out through this slit to form a tube. And this is referred to as germinal tube. Okay. The contents of the spore, that is cytoplasm and nucleus, it will enter into the tube. The colorless plastid is chloroplast here, develops in chlorophylls. The transverse wall are formed successively, resulting in formation of 2 cells at the apex. The subsequent divisions are transverse as well as longitudinal planes, resulting in the formation of new gametophyte. The first rhizoid appears as an elongation of any cell of the young thallus. Nostoc, that is a symbiont with the gametophyte of Anthoceros, the nostoc infection takes place as the growth proceeds, and that symbiosis will take place. And now I'm coming to the last part of this life cycle, which is referred to as alternation of generation. In the life cycle of Anthoceros, we have recognized two important generations or two phases. We began with gametophyte. Gametophyte possess reproductive organs, antheridium and archegonium. They produces their gametes respectively, anthrozooid and egg. They fuses together to form zygote. Zygote develops into the zygote develops into a new sporophyte. The sporophyte produces spores which are haploid. The spores are released. The spores germinate to form the new gametophyte. So we started with a gametophyte, and now at the end again we are getting a gametophyte. So one circle is completed, and that completed circle is referred to as alternation of generation. It is a life cycle. You can see the same life cycle in this pictorial form. What is alternation of generation? In simple words, we define alternation of generation as successive appearance of the gametophyte and sporophyte, one after the life cycle, is referred to as. So Anthoceros has got two phases or generations which constitute the life cycle. The two generations include gametophyte, which is haploid, and sporophyte, which is diploid. The haploid generation, that is gametophyte, is autotrophic. Look at this. This is gametophyte. This is a dorsal surface. This is a ventral surface. Ventral surface has got rhizoids, which are of only one type. Which type? That is simple type, no tuberculated. Scales are also absent. What is the function of gametophyte?
To produce gamete.
The function of gametophyte is simply by of reproductive organs. So what reproductive organs? The reproductive organs include the antheridium and archegonium. I'm looking here. This is gametophyte, which is N. This is gametophyte N. This gametophyte possesses antheridium and archegonium. So here also I'm putting N. Both are haploid. The antheridium is producing anthrozooid, which is called as a sperm. Archegonium, the flask-shaped structure, is producing female gamete, which is called as egg. At the time of fertilization, both fuses together. It is usually cross-fertilization and not the self-fertilization. After the fusion, zygote is formed. This zygote develops into sporophyte. This is a sporophyte. The sporophyte, which possesses foot, intercalary region or meristematic region, and the capsule. This is a capsule. In the capsule, you will get columella in the center. You will get the capsule wall, and in between, these sporogenous cells have spore mother cells which divide by meiosis to form haploid spores. The spores are released in the form of spore tetrads. These are the pseudoelaters which will provide the nourishment for the same. the spores are released. These spores, after getting favorable conditions, especially the water availability, they will absorb the water, and each of the spore will germinate and give rise to the new thallus, that is new gametophyte of Anthoceros. And that is how the life cycle would be completed. And that is referred to as alternation of generations. This is another diagram which is showing the same thing, that is alternation of generation in a different way. So here cellular details are given. We start with the young thallus, gametophyte. It has got archegonium and antheridium. They produce female gametes. They fertilize, they fuses together. After fertilization, zygote is formed, which is the beginning of sporophytic generation. The zygote divides, redivides into the young sporophyte. Young sporophyte will have the foot, the capsule, and intercalary region. At maturity, it produces spore mother cells. The spore mother cells undergoes meiosis to form spore tetrads. Spores, individual spores germinate and they give rise to the new gametophyte. So here a spore, a single spore is the first stage or first cell of the gametophytic generation, whereas zygote is the first cell of sporophytic generation. That is how the life cycle is completed. When both the generations are multicellular and well developed, the alternation of generation is called as diplohaplontic. I repeat, diplohaplontic life cycle. Because here one stage is diploid, that is sporophytic generation, and second is haploid, that is gametophytic generation. So this particular alternation of generation is referred to as diplohaplontic alternation of generation. Sorry, alternation of generations. Question is possible here. What is meant by alternation of generation? Describe the diplohaplontic alternation of generation in Anthoceros. Okay, so that completes